Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron van Wirdum. I work for Bitcoin Magazine. I also host a technical podcast, Bitcoin Explained. John, I heard you're looking for technical explanations in podcast. We got you covered, man. Bitcoin Explained. We got it all. I'm joined here with Nicolas, Roy, and Conor. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Nicolas.
Hi, I'm Nicolas Burtey. I'm the founder of Galoy. I also organize Adopting Bitcoin, the conference you are in today. We also are building a wallet called the Bitcoin Beach Wallet, which is a wallet used in El Zonte.
Roy.
I'm Roy Sheinfeld. I'm the CEO and founder of Breez. And thanks, Nikolai, for organizing the conference.
Hello everyone, my name's Conor, product manager at Square Crypto. We're focused on helping to move the Bitcoin ecosystem forward. We fund over 30 developers and designers across 17, 18 different countries. And we also build tools to make developers' lives easier.
So on this panel, we're going to discuss the future of Lightning custody. And we have 3 Lightning developers on stage. So to sort of set the context, I'd like to start with the 3 of you explaining what your current approach to Lightning custody is. How are funds custody in your wallets right now? Want to start, Nicolas?
Yeah, sure. So what we are doing with the Bitcoin Beach wallet is what we call shared custody. When I start my journey into Lightning about 2 years ago, I tried to build a non-custodial wallet, and I quickly see that the main limitation that we may see on the Lightning network was that to open a channel and close a channel will cost a lot of money. And if you want to get adoption in a country like El Salvador, the simple fact to manage your own channel for your own node, if you're earning $300 per month, might be too much. And therefore, a solution like a shared custody might be a good way to move forward. What shared custody is the idea that you have a set of UTXO for your Lightning node, but you are not the only one using this node. You have many people using this node. The reason we call it shared custody, so it's a model of custodial wallet. But the idea is that we have, for the Bitcoin Beach wallet, for instance, we have a Lightning node that is the hot wallet, where there is a minimum of fund into this wallet to make daily payments. But the major part of the fund for this wallet is actually in a multi-sig wallet, which is where the different people have the key for this multi-sig, which are spread among different people of the community. And therefore, it's shared custody because the people managing the wallet, they are in El Salvador and they have access to the key. There is many people that need to do a transaction if they want to spend the fund from the multisig. It's similar to a way to what you will have on an exchange. You always have a cold storage and a hot wallet. But here the idea is to duplicate the model of an exchange, but reduce it to a size where you could have maybe 100 people or 1,000 people or maybe 10,000 people that could use this wallet, not necessarily 10 of million of people. And so this is what we're working on, the shared custody model.
Yeah, so to clarify one thing real quick, I think shared custody, so there's basically self-custody where you're keeping the keys yourself, and then there's custody, and then shared custody is sort of a subcategory of custody where instead of one party custodying the funds, it's distributed among several parties, right? But as a user, you don't see the difference as a user, right? As a user, it's custody, and you're assuming or trusting or relying on the promise that it's shared. Is this fair?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. All right, Roy.
Yeah, so Breez is 100% non-custodial solution. When you install Breez, you run your own node on your mobile device, so you retain custody. What else you want me to expand on something? It's very simple. Like instead of running a node on Umbrel, you're running a node on your mobile device.
I think the channels that open on the fly are maybe an interesting piece to go into.
Yeah, so that's another thing. That's a question of trust. We've implemented, we've customized what you have when you run Breez on your mobile device. You have a customized version of LND. We have a fork of LND. And one of the things that we've done in order to optimize user experience, there's always trade. We can talk about like 2 hours about the trade-offs that we can do on like user experience versus trust. One of the trade-offs is zero conf channels. By the way, don't use the term turbo channels. Don't use the marketing term of turbo channels. These are not turbo channels. These are zero conf channels. And when you do zero conf channels, so we have this concept of an LSP, a Lightning Service Provider. When someone receives fund in Breez, when someone tops up Breez, there's an entity, an LSP, which is actually a routing node in the network, just with another function, and the function is to open channel to the end user. So it's a end user facing node, we call it an LSP. So we've introduced this concept of an LSP in order to simplify a Lightning service provider, exactly like an internet service provider. We introduced this concept in order to simplify the user experience of Lightning. So when you top up the wallet, the LSP intercept the HTLC, or multiple HTLCs in case of MPP, and it opens a zero conf channel on the fly to the end user. Now, the user, because it's a zero conf channel, the user can immediately spend the fund without waiting for on-chain confirmation. And during the time between the channel creation and the ability to wait for confirmation, during the time they trust Breez not to double spend. So yeah, that's the trade-off in terms of trust that exists in the product.
That's only until the first confirmation.
Until the first confirmation, yes, and also first, you know. There's the question, what's a settlement, right? When do you actually can trust the chain? Or when you do a Lightning transaction, are you actually trusting? That's a philosophical question more than a pragmatic question. But yeah, till the first confirmation.
Conor.
Yeah, so me and my team are coming from a slightly different perspective in that we don't build wallets ourselves, but rather build the tools for developers and teams to build wallets. I think it might be a little bit important to think about what is the current, most popular self-sovereign stack at the minute. At least to my understanding, it's these kind of plug-and-play solutions such as Umbro and Raspberry Blitz that come pre-packaged with a Bitcoin full node, a Lightning node, usually like running LND or C Lightning or whatever implementation, and a kind of DIY do-it-yourself build hardware, or you can kind of have the hardware configured for you out of the box. And I think there's a few challenges around that. So one, it can be very costly to get the hardware, to configure the hardware. Anything from $80 to $400, depending on what kind of hardware you're running. And obviously, this is a kind of a deal breaker in emerging markets potentially, or some regions. So we have the cost. We also have speed, so it can be quite slow. You have to do a sync in the blockchain, can take up to a day or half a day, and that's that's also a showstopper for the experience that we want. We want people to essentially open a mobile application, be able to send and receive money instantly. So from that point of view, it's a showstopper. And then I think lastly is like the technical challenge required to open channels and manage channels and all of these kind of things. So I would say that's the closest thing we have to a self-sovereign stack. And then moving along the spectrum is like where our teams see the most opportunity in helping to provide the tools for non-custodial mobile Lightning-enabled wallets. Where what Roy kind of just explained is where you have a Lightning node running on your mobile device that can send and receive, and it's not configured necessarily to be a routing node, but it gives you the the flexibility to decide how you onboard users, how you enable functionality such that they can spend funds straight away and receive funds straight away, different mechanisms for how they manage their transactions in a private way. So yeah, we kind of sit on that spectrum of the kind of, I guess, custodial scale, I'd say. So.
Yeah, I'll mention originally Pierre-Marie Badiou was also supposed to be here, but he had issues with his flight, so that's why there's...
Phoenix, Pierre, who's the CEO of Async, he does the Phoenix wallet, which has a similar model to the Breez stack.
Right, it's similar.
Very similar,
right.
Yeah. The thing about Phoenix that they're, well, not fair because Pierre is not here, but they allow you to open the LSP, the Async LSP, opens channels only, you can, as a user, you can interact only with the Async node. In Breez, you can open channels to other nodes in the network. We don't lock you to the Breez node.
Right, got it. So we've now sort of touched on private key storage essentially. Before we move on, I want to touch on another type of storage, which is seed storage, because I think there are different approaches there as well, which is sort of a gray area.
You said seed?
Yeah, like your key seeds.
Your keys.
Yeah, like how do wallets store the seeds? So not the private keys, but the seeds. And I think there are different approaches there as well. Is that right?
You mean from a backup standpoint?
Yeah, backups. Yeah. I think there are wallets that use encrypted cloud storage, right?
There are several models. Well, let's take a step back and explain why a Lightning wallet has a different backup mechanism compared to an on-chain wallet.
Yes.
So in an on-chain wallet, you just need a seed, right? You just need to write down your 12 or 24 words, and you're okay, because all the keys of your transaction can be derived from this single key. In Lightning, if you don't want to close your channels, if you want to keep your channel running, you have to maintain somehow the channel state. So maintaining the channel state requires a dynamic backup that should happen every time you do a Lightning transaction. So every time you send or receive a Lightning payment, the channel state changes, and then you need to back up this channel state in order to be able to recover the channel without force closing the channel. So every Lightning wallet has a different kind of mechanism to do that. Custodial wallet don't really need to do that, because in a custodial wallet you just need like an ID. If you have the user ID, what do you do in Galoy? Do you have a user and password? Like what's the account model?
Yeah, user account.
Yeah. So you just need the user and password, and then you retrieve your state from the shared custody. In Breez, we have an architecture where you can save the channel state to different cloud vendors. So you can save the channel state to Google, you can save your channel state to iCloud, and if you want to be really self-sovereign, you can run your own Nextcloud on your home umbrella and save your channel state to your own cloud infrastructure.
Is there a default option?
The defaults to, in Android, it defaults to Google, and in iPhone, it defaults to iCloud. But for advanced user, like privacy concerned users, we give the option to back up to any web dev server. And we also offer an additional encryption key that allows you to encrypt the channel state data when you save it to the cloud if you don't want to rely on the security model of the cloud vendor. So it can be totally encrypted at the client side, but then you need to write down your mnemonics again, because we use mnemonic in order to encrypt the bit.
Right, but it's easier because it doesn't have to be updated for every channel update.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. Phoenix, for example, has a different backup model. They actually use the channel state on the async node in order to retrieve the state of the channel on the user end. So it's encrypted, but you actually rely on their node in order to store the channel state. So in case the Phoenix node disappears, you're out of luck. Moon, which is another very popular, successful, it's actually an on-chain wallet, and they give you a way to derive all the keys using their own proprietary backup infrastructure, but you just need to recover your keys, your on-chain keys, because in Moon, currently everything is swaps. When you do a Lightning transaction, you're actually doing an on-chain swap.
Conor, what's your approach on this, the backup topic?
Yeah, again, we provide the tools to do a lot of what Roy is describing. So yeah, everything from at least the LDK, from the LDK perspective, the Lightning Development Kit, we provide an API that allows a developer to decide to back up that channel state, back up those private keys to a local file system, encrypted of course, or to your own cloud provider, Google Drive.
The cool
iCloud.
thing about LDK, sorry to interrupt. The cool thing about LDK that a lot of the stuff that we had to do in Breez to customize LND to support, for example, backups, you need every time the channel state changes, and there are multiple changes when you do a Lightning transaction. It's not a single event. There's a multiple events like doing the round trip of a payment. A lot of the things that we had to customize in order to implement this dynamic backup, in LDK it's already built in. So in LDK, they already provide you the event that we had to fork LND in order to implement this dynamic backup. It's built into LDK out of the box. Although ZeroConf, by the way, we had to customize LND in order to support ZeroConf channel. In LDK, it's already built into the building blocks. So very cool.
It said it all for me.
Maybe on the storage of the seed phrase, there is also something to consider is if you're watching node, where do you host your watching node? Because today, if you look at the network, basically the top watching nodes are all hosted on AWS or Google Cloud. And if you really think about it, there is a say that not your key, not your coin, but I believe something that's applied today in the Lightning Network that is not great, and we probably should improve this, is also not your server and not your key. Because if you are hosting your watching node on a cloud provider, basically they could have access to your key. And I know the case when we had the call to, we are this panel with Pierre-Marie, he told that, ASIC is hosted on AWS, and on our side we are hosted on GCP. And it's easy to look at the watching node, where they are located, because typically they will publish their IP address. If you are a watching node and you want to be a large watching node on the network, you may use Tor and your IP address. And if you look at the IP address, you know that they are located on cloud provider. And so far in the current implementation, there is no way to plug an HSM. And I think it's a very important thing that the community should be focusing on. Because if you don't use an HSM brings a very high barrier to securing your key in a secure enclave. If you don't use an HSM, it means the key are in memory, and it means your cloud provider may have access to the key eventually. I think it's also something important to talk about.
All right, so from here on stage, the audio is much worse than there. I think what you're saying is the server can go offline. Is that what you're talking about, or?
You didn't hear me, right?
I heard half of it.
Okay. Okay.
You're good? All right, well, do we move on? It's not important that I understand.
I think
you can watch the video afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on. Ideally, I think everyone would agree that at least theoretically self-custody is ideal. You're holding your own keys. It's a more private solution. At least, that's what we're assuming based on the privacy property of the Lightning Network as we know them. It's censorship resistant, but it has downsides. And Nicolas, you already mentioned some of it, but let's very clearly break down the downsides of self-custody? Why is this at this point at least not an ideal solution? What are the drawbacks of self-custody?
Yeah, there are a couple of issues. Like if we think about especially a country like El Salvador, there are many people that are using a wallet in El Zonte or neighboring village. They are not able to write, like they're analphabet, and they're able to use a wallet because it's fairly straightforward to use, but just requiring those people to write like 24 words on a paper is not something they like. The bar from learning them to do that is very high if you're analphabet, right? So like there is an education piece, which is, I guess, something that could be worked on. In the long run, what I think will be the most challenge is the cost associated to running your own node. So it's probably excluded to you when you're on WASP Blitz or you're on Umbrel, because internet and electricity is not the most reliable, but as Conor says, the cost of acquiring your node is high. But if you think about a mobile wallet, which is probably the practical solution, the issue is that you need, so a LSP will need to open a channel to you, and maybe multiple channels. And currently the cost of opening a channel is very low because the mempool is empty, but there is an inherent cost associated to that. Even if you are opening a channel initially, typically what Phoenix will be doing is you will have to spend still 3,000 sats, because Phoenix, at some point they know that they will have to close this channel and they need to charge upfront for that. And so even in an environment where the fees are at 1 sat per byte, they have to charge 3,000 sats to open a channel. And 3,000 sats may be okay currently, but if the fees are increasing, it's like it goes to the 10,000 sats, if not more. And this is becoming an acceptable trade-off for many people that are earning $300 per month.
And in this context, you're mostly referring to the initial onboarding process, essentially?
Initial onboarding process, definitively, yeah.
And after that, I would assume channel management and keeping the liquidity that might require more on-chain transactions. That's what you mean, or no?
Also, I mean, the initial onboarding, you need to pay fee for that. You will need to pay fee. Yeah, for some point you need to rebalance your channel. Of course, if you pull that because you have like a custodial wallet or a shared custody wallet, then the fees associated to this rebalancing, is spread among every user on the wallet, and therefore per user the cost is less.
It looks like you don't completely agree, Roy. Or
let's take a step. I think we need to take a step back. Like, what's the difference between a company like Galoy, Wallet of Satoshi, Blue Wallet that runs their own custodial Lightning solution, than a company like Breez, Phoenix? Like, what's the core difference? The core difference is that Breez also serves as an LSP. As an LSP, we need to open a channel. Now, opening a channel, that's the additional cost as an operator of a non-custodial solution. That's the additional cost that we have. So it's not just the channels with the routing nodes. There's also channels with end users. That these channels don't exist in a custodial solution. So the question is, what are we doing with the cost of these channels? So there are three elements to this cost, basically. There's the cost of the UTXO, like opening the channel, the fees that the on-chain blockchain requires. There are the fees of closing the channels, like no one talks about it, but closing the channels also costs money. And by the way, the previous session about package relay is key to reduce the cost of closing channels. So we have the fees of opening the channels, we have the fees of closing the channels, and we have, I think the key element here is liquidity management. By the way, everything in Lightning, all the user experience issues, all the success or failure of Lightning dependent on one thing, which is liquidity management and liquidity providers. So in Lightning, the key is to allocate your liquidity efficiently. And when you open a channel to an end user, you allocate liquidity. at some point. Even if you don't provide an automatic inbound liquidity, when the user spends the fund and empty their end of the channel, then what do you do with the channel? Do you close the channel? If you close the channel, then you'll need to reopen the channel afterwards. But if you don't close the channel, how do you know that your liquidity is well managed? Like liquidity management, that's the key element. And the way to solve liquidity management is by doing routing fees. Like routing fees, that's the inherent element in Lightning to recuperate your liquidity allocation. So the question is...
In that case, you mean as an end user, you're also routing and that's how you're managing your liquidity. That's what you're saying?
Not just managing my liquidity, but actually earning fees, earning yield on the liquidity that I've allocated into the Lightning channel. Now the key question is whether Lightning is profitable. I think that's a key question for custodial solution. I think that's a key question for non-custodial solution. Meaning, take a look at Lightning, maybe look at Lightning like any SaaS service. There's a customer acquisition cost and there's a customer long time value. In Lightning, the question, if we divide the customer long time value by the customer acquisition cost, which is higher in the case of non-custodial solution, are we still making money? In the case of Breez, in the case of Phoenix right now, we actually don't. That's why we ask the user to pay for the channel opening fees. Now in Phoenix that's 3K sats, in Breez that's 2K sats, it doesn't really matter. But the reason we do that is because we're not profitable on the Lightning transaction. Like the way for us to succeed is to route a lot of transactions and to make a lot of money from routing fees. Now, I think the key question going forward, whether the user is exposed to the Lightning fees or not. I think that's the key element of the discussion, like custodial versus non-custodial.
Yeah, and probably how much effort it will cost the user to set this up, while a custodial solution is very easy and simple, right? That was Nicolas.
No, from a user experience standpoint, I think we got to a point with the second generation wallet, like Moon, like Phoenix, like Breez, that it's completely obfuscated from the user. The user doesn't need to think about channel management and anything like that. But the economics of Lightning, that's the challenge. Are we able to recuperate the cost of this channel management to the end user by earning routing fees? And where we are, and we're just starting with Lightning, we're not able to do that. That's why we ask the user to participate with this channel. We call it in Breez setup fee.
So to summarize, ultimately the challenge here is much more in the economic realm than in the technical realm.
Exactly. Although, and I'll represent Pierre from Async, there are improvements that are coming to the Lightning Network in order to reduce the cost of channel closing fees, specifically, like anchor outputs, package relay, splicing. By the way, splicing is key as well, because instead of opening a new channel...
Let's get there in a minute,
okay.
Before we go there. So the general idea, the challenge is economic rather than technical. Connor, do you agree with that?
I was just going to ask, so I guess even just listening to John Cavallo's talk as well, it seems like there's going to be like this open market for LSPs. What, from a user, I'm kind of turning into host here, but from a user perspective, what is going to be the differentiator between what LSP I ultimately decide to open channels with and conduct economic activity with? Will there be like because the friction to change is so low compared to an ISP, like what would be some of the
so I think right now it's the channel closing. That's the only point of friction. The closing of the channel doesn't exist in custodial solution, although I think we can improve. I think endgame, I don't think from a user experience standpoint there will be a difference between custodial and non-custodial. That's my view, and you can see that with like if you compare the first generation wallet to the second generation wallet, you can see that, and I think third generation wallet will completely be seamless to the end user, including channel close. Because in channel close, okay, you close the channels go back to the on-chain, but then if the user wants to reuse it in the Lightning context, then you only need to do a swap. Basically, yes, again, everything goes back to the economic model of Lightning and whether we will be able to generate enough revenue from routing fees in order to obfuscate the fees from the end user.
Right, so do you have an answer to, is that possible, Nicolas? What's your...
Yeah, I have a question first. So when you say watching, I guess there is two types of watching that we can have in mind, right? There is the one when the end user that you are connected to is not involved, and you can route transaction as being a watching node. And the other is routing fee being an LSP where you act as a hop just before the last. And for here, you can enforce some fees. And I think Phoenix charged like 10 basis points on this. I don't know how much Breez charge. One of the key points here is that as a result of using this non-custodial wallet, the people sending money to you have to incur fee because they have to pay for this routing fee versus if the same payer will send to a custodial node, their fees to send money to you might be less.
Yes, I agree. But the question is, you know what I learned in the past 4 years doing Breez? Users don't care. The users that are here, they care about custody. But 80%, I don't know, 90%, 99% of users, they don't care about custody, no custody. They really don't give a fuck. But I think non-custodial is the only way to go because non-custodial gives you economical advantages that you don't get in custodial solution. So the question is whether we can leverage the economical benefits of providing non-custodial solution to generate enough revenue to compensate on the extra costs that non-custodial solutions carry. I think that's the question. But yeah. So, but I think to your question, I think even routing fees will be, the user won't be exposed to routing fees by the end of the day. The user will buy something on Bit Refill, the user will pay podcast, the user will earn Bitcoin using Lightning, and the routing fees will just be part of the economic structure of the Lightning economy.
Okay, I want to move on to another topic, which is one of the another downside of the custodial solution, which is or is not. I guess that's a question mostly for Nicolas. Is the KYC issue. Do custodial providers currently need to do KYC on their customers, and do they?
It depends on the solution. I guess it's custodial doesn't mean KYC. If you look at the provider in the US, yes, they do KYC. If you look at provider outside the US, they don't necessarily do KYC. If you think about wallet of Satoshi, like you can use the wallet as you want. If you think about Blue Wallet, so Blue Wallet is a non-custodial wallet, except Lightning, which is custodial. You can use it as you want. Currently, for instance, for Bitcoin Beach Wallet, there is a form of light KYC if you wish, because we ask for a phone number, but we don't ask for more information. So it's
complicated.
We're flying under the radar, to be honest. Like all the custodial solutions currently flying under the radar when it comes to regulation. That's.
I mean, if you look at River in the US, like you can use their node if you KYC.
Up until a certain amount, right? And you KYC with River.
Yeah, you KYC. Yeah.
So.
And I guess another way to look at it is that if you do have to do KYC, then that is also a cost. So if we get back to the economic issue, that's
money transmitter license costs a lot of money. Regulation costs a lot of money. Being able to support, you take a look at Strike. Strike is an amazing solution in the United States, but they didn't went global yet, right? Why? Because it takes time, it takes money. You need to have the right lawyers in every territory. You need, actually, from a Lightning standpoint, there are companies that are setting nodes in each territory in order to accommodate the regulation of the specific territories they want to support. And that's crazy. and think about the economic benefits of going non-custodial, you can go global without dealing with this regulation, legal, all this hassle.
But you have a very good point that the cost of regulation should be something to consider in the, if we step back and we look at the cost structure, like it's, something to.
Yeah, the balance may tip more towards self-custody, for example, because of KYC. So we should be hoping for more KYC on custodial solutions, really.
You think users care about KYC? They don't.
Well, but they care about the cost. Like they have to pay the cost in the end, right?
Exactly. There's the
we
cost.
Agree. We agree.
Exactly. The cost of it's not just KYC, by the way. AML is also like huge.
I think some users might care a little bit, actually. Like some users will find it a hassle to send their copy.
But like most
in
users,
general, just sending a copy to some company, it's a hassle, right? All right, Roy, you wanted to get into some of the solutions that are in progress to make Lightning or self-custody in particular even cheaper in the future?
Yeah, and that's from Pierre from Async, who I'll represent. Again, going back to our discussion, what's a channel actually? Like, what's the extra cost of opening channels to end users? So you can think about a channel as just yet another UTXO, right? And the lower the number of UTXO, the lower the cost. So the ways to reduce the number of UTXO is by doing splicing, for example. So currently in Breez, when you are missing inbound liquidity, we open a new channel on the fly to the user. So we support multiple channels, depends on the amount of inbound liquidity, and depends on the pattern you interact with the wallet. You need more liquidity, we open more channels. More channels, more UTXOs. More UTXOs, more cost. Splicing in that regard really helps to reduce cost, because instead of opening a new channel when you need more inbound liquidity, we can, using splicing, we can increase the capacity of your existing channel and remain with a single UTXO for larger capacity, larger inbound liquidity. So splicing gonna be...
Maybe you should explain in 2 sentences what splicing is.
So splicing is a way to reuse your channel and actually create another transaction that replace the original transaction and increase the amount of your capacity within the channel.
So what is the status of splicing today? Are there wallets that use it? Is this in development?
I think it's going to come very soon to C Lightning. C Lightning are always there, like they've implemented dual funder channels. That's kind of you get all the infrastructure you need with dual funder channels. They need to do some extra work to support splicing, but it's coming to C Lightning. I know it's in the works for LDK. I don't know, Conor, if you want to expand.
Yeah, is this in progress, Conor, or
I don't really have many comments on that, but like most things, we try and be like as spec compliant as possible. So the last year has been very much just focused on developer experience and language binding and things of this nature. So yeah, splicing is just something that will be added to our long priority list. So.
It's coming. And in LND, the backlog is big as well, but it's coming. More. Because
yeah, and I think splicing for Lightning is.
And Async, of course. Async gonna support it soon. Moon is working on splicing as well.
I think splicing is higher priority in Lightning because you can have only one channel between nodes, and therefore, like if you want to, for instance, have bigger channel size. Currently, you can close the channel and we open a bigger one.
Yeah, but then you need to pay for the closing fees. With splicing, you don't need to pay.
For sure.
Yeah.
But LND have less, need for that in the short term because you can already open multiple channels, which make splicing, a lot more valuable for C Lightning, right?
Yeah. But also for us as an LSP, I would love to manage only a single channel with the end user because it saves me the cost of multiple channels. So splicing is one enhancement. Another enhancement is anchor channel, anchor outputs. Anchor outputs is an output that you have every time you open a channel. There's an additional output that allows you to do a child pay for parent, which allows you to be more dynamic with the cost of closing the channel. And with package relay,
the problem, it was just discussed in the previous talk, but for the people that just walked in or watching online, the problem is that you don't know in advance how high fees will be later. So the only way to set up a Lightning channel is to sort of take it, better safe than sorry, and pay a high fee, and then you're overpaying most of the time.
You're almost always overpaying the closing channel fees.
When it's a forced close, right?
When it's a forced close, and it's very naive. Like the algorithm now in L&D is very naive, and you pay a lot of funds for closing the fees. The key is how we can reduce that to minimum. So with anchor channels and with package relay combined, then you can actually set 1 sat per byte cost and actually pay 1 sat per byte cost if that's the current state of the mempool. So that's going to be very key to reduce the cost of channel management.
Right, yeah. So these kind of work in combination, the anchor.
Anchor is already implemented in L&D. I don't know the status of the other implementations. Package relay, I think Gloria said 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right?
We'll wait.
All right, we have about 10 more minutes, and I think there's a lot of pretty smart people in the room that might have some input in this discussion. So are there any questions or comments? Yeah, I see 2 hands. How do we work the mics here? Do we have a mic guy? Shall we just walk?
Hello, thank you very much. There have been various proof of reserve schemes that have been proposed for on-chain Bitcoin transactions that would allow custodial wallets or exchanges to prove that they have the Bitcoin that they pretend to have. Are there any proof of reserve schemes for custodial Lightning wallets? Because if we don't really have any progress with proof of reserve schemes and we have a Lightning custodial wallet economy flourishing, we've run the risk of ending up with the same kind of bank runs that banks used to suffer from in the gold standard era, basically.
We are open source and PR are welcome.
And there's another concept.
Adding proof of reserve is something that we, on our side, want to do. It's just like in the long list of stuff we want to add. So I think proof of reserve is easy for on-chain UTXO. It's actually much harder for Lightning, the funds that are in your Lightning channel. And there is actually some discussion on an issue on L&D that I opened for trying to think about this, how to make proof of reserve with Lightning node. I'm not sure there is a consensus on it yet. Yeah, I'd love to have something on this at some point.
The only thing I can add is the concept created by Anton, the simple Bitcoin wallet author. He created this concept of hosted channels, which are actually custodial channels. And in custodial channels, you can actually audit the state of the channel. Although you don't have the keys, and although the funds are spendable by the custodial service, you as a user, you can audit the state of the channels if you can access the channel. So that's kind of a step in the right direction. I don't know what you think about it, Nikolai.
I've heard about hosted channel. I've not dived into this, so I don't have too much input. Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to ask, I had heard, maybe I'm wrong, that Anchor Outputs was actually incompatible with watchtowers. Can you confirm? Or?
Well, I don't see a technical reason why there will be incompatible. What watchtowers are just monitoring the state of the UTXO. So you can do, maybe it's more complicated to do. Maybe they need to, watchtowers need to add support for anchor channels, anchor output, but I don't see a reason that the Watchtower won't be able to support anchor outputs. I don't know.
So now that we're past one soft fork, do you think it's time to push for what's needed for L2? Because that also helps the problem of not being able to plan for what the future fee rate will be.
You asking my personal opinion? I think we need to go slow. That's my personal opinion. I think there's so much to do in the existing infrastructure. I wouldn't run to L2. That's my personal opinion.
Conor or Nicolas, any thoughts on that or no?
Hi guys, thanks for the talk. There's some things I'm just running through my head. As a financial lawyer myself, I understand the problem you mentioned regarding scaling when we talk about KYC, AML. But I don't have any bias for custodian, not custodian. I'm just trying to think. So if not custodian, is that not limiting the adoption? Is the niche not focusing too much on only technical people that understand about Bitcoin? What about people that don't really care? They just want to see their money. If you send them $100 from the US back to somewhere in Lagos, Nigeria, they want to see it. They know it's $100, and they want to know that the money is there. So what's your take on that?
So I think that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. The reason I created Breez, the reason we started Breez, is to create a non-custodial solution that will be on par with what custodial solution and even what fiat solution has to offer. I think that we're getting there, and I think you'll see in the next year or two that the gap will close even further, and we'll be able to provide, I'm 100% sure we'll be able to provide a non-custodial user experience that is on par with what a custodial or fiat solution has to offer.
Yeah, and to the credit of Roy, I believe we already, with the current wallet, the mobile wallets that are non-custodial, we reach a stage that is basically on par with what you can have with custodial wallets. I think the big question that we all have as part of this panel is more on the economic side, more than the UX side. I think the UX side it's not done. You know, there's a lot of things to do to improve the UX, but on the UX, we know we'll get there, and we're almost there. On the economic side, this is where all the questions remain, I think.
So I actually have one question myself. What about the challenges of essentially scaling Bitcoin itself? Lightning, gets us a long way versus doing everything on chain, but in the end, at least if we do self-custody, then people will still need to have their UTXOs on the blockchain, right? And that's still a limited resource. Custodial solutions would be one solution to that problem, to scaling. Are there other ideas here? Or do you agree this is a bottleneck? And if so, are there any ideas on how to solve this particular bottleneck?
You're trying to lead us down the block size increase path, aren't you?
There you go.
I thought we decided to increase the block size, no?
Yeah, that's the easy solution.
Channel factories, there's a lot of... So I don't think... the thing you need to understand about... You understand that, but we, working in the Bitcoin ecosystem, we tackle one problem after another. We don't rush to we don't work for the big cashers. We don't work for people who are trying to attack Bitcoin. There's no real problem of space in the blockchain right now. And when there's a problem, if there will be a problem, we'll solve it. But I don't think pragmatically it's an issue right now. So no one is rushing to solve it. There are suggestions, there are solutions that will enable us to optimize, open multiple channels using one UTXO, etc. But who cares right now?
My gut feeling is custodial wallet will be a big part of scaling, and this is already what we see today. That said, I think having option of non-custody is the key part of Bitcoin that we want to keep, and the work that Troy and Phoenix and Moon are doing are key, because if we don't have this possibility to opt out, this is when we have all the issues that we have in the fiat system. So.
All right, I think that's our time. Maybe one last question or no? I don't see any hands. All right, last one.
Since if you have a Lightning node, it would always be connected, and you said that you would have to have your keys in order to update the channel status. So that would be really similar to a hot wallet. And so that would present a danger in case that your device gets attacked. Are there any other dangers to running your Lightning node?
So in a non-custodial solution, when you run a node on your mobile device, you're as safe as your device, of course. So in security, there's a concept, if someone can access your hardware, you're being compromised. So yeah, you're being compromised if you allow users or allow people to access your device, and you're dependent on the vulnerabilities and the trust, by the way. Everyone talks about Bitcoin trust, but no one talks about OS trust. No one talks about CPU trust. There's trust almost everywhere in the stack. So don't trust. Install your own operating system. Install your own software. Do whatever you need in order to keep yourself and your funds safe. That said, again, most of users don't care. So what we do in Breez, we provide them means to protect their app. So we give them the ability to enter a PIN code. We give them the ability to use biometrics in order to log into the app, etc., etc. But yeah.
All right. Conor, Roy, Nicolas, thank you for being here, and everyone else, thank you for being here as well.